my sister passed away, leaving behind 2 young children. Mother begged me to become my brother-in-law's second wife. I didn't mince words and asked directly, "Nephew is precious, but can I discipline him if he misbehaves?" Mother nodded repeatedly. "Of course you can. Niece is delicate, but can I correct her when she makes mistakes?" "No problem at all." I finally asked, "What about brother-in-law? I've long disliked him. Can I give him a beating?" Mother wiped her sweat. "You'll have to ask your mother-in-law about that. After all, he's not my son." After eldest sister's passing, Mother worried day and night, losing sleep and appetite. Every time I saw her with dark circles under her eyes, hesitating to speak to me, it irritated me greatly. All these years, sister was pampered and raised by her and father, while I was brought up at Jeju Pass by my grandparents. Mother already owed me, yet after I returned home, instead of finding me a proper marriage, she planned to make me my brother-in-law's second wife. Fortunately, she and father still had some restraint and didn't dare propose it directly, only sighing incessantly in front of me every day. Resentment swelled in my heart. I was tempted to write to grandfather and take my men back to Jeju Pass. Let them say what they will, but by chance, I caught sight of the silver threads in mother's hair, her weary expression, and father's increasingly stooped frame, and in the end, I couldn't bear to leave. Very well. I'll consider it repayment for the debt of bringing me into this world. So I laid it out plainly to mother. I'll marry into Jinyoung Estate, but everything must be done my way. Mother covered her face, weeping with emotion. "My child, I knew you still cared for us." I replied, coldly, "Stop. Let's be clear from the start to avoid future disputes." She wiped her tears awkwardly and said, "You're perfect in every way, child, except for this temperament, so much like your grandfather." Then she quickly added, "Since you're willing to marry into the estate, nothing could be better. You know how busy your brother-in-law is. He can't look after the children. Alara is only 6, without a mother's guidance. How will she find a good match? And Leo is just 3. How can he grow up properly? If they fall into a stepmother's hands, your sister would never rest in peace." As she spoke, tears welled up in her eyes once more. I sighed, my headache growing worse. Speaking of my sister, she truly had a hard life. Gentle and beautiful, virtuous and kind, though we didn't spend much time together. She always treated me well. My brother-in-law is Aiden Zhao, the Lord Heir of Jinyoung Estate, handsome and accomplished in both civil and military arts, currently serving as Vice Minister in the Ministry of Justice. They were a well-matched couple, blessed with 2 lovely children, a marriage envied by nearly everyone. But my sister was frail, and a bout of cold last spring took her life. Now that my brother-in-law has completed the mourning period, Jinyoung Estate has sent word, hoping to continue the alliance between our families. Mother wasn't too keen on the idea. After all, she knows me well, aware that I've always valued my freedom and am reluctant to live in a noble household. Yet she couldn't stop worrying about the 2 children my sister left behind. The estate is now a complex household, with the Countess in poor health, and the household affairs managed by Lady Lee of the second branch. Lady Lee also has a son, 2 years older than Leo, and she's particularly fond of showing off and seeking attention. The 2 children born to sister are confined to their own courtyard all day, raised by wet nurses, and are becoming increasingly narrow-minded. If a stepmother enters the household, the 2 children's future will only grow more difficult. After much deliberation, I simply cannot rest easy. It's merely a matter of 10 years. After all, in 10 years, Alara will be of marriageable age, and Leo will have grown into adulthood. By then, I'll be 26 and can simply return to Jeju Pass. Thinking this, I said to Mother, "Since they're entrusted to me, I must fulfill a mother's duties. Leo is precious, but if he makes a mistake, may I discipline him?" Mother quickly nodded. "Of course, if you don't discipline him and instead spoil him with indulgence. That's what would worry me." "That's more like it," I continued. "And what about Alara? May I scold her?" "No problem. Mother is still reasonable. After all, finally, I asked, and brother-in-law, I've long disliked him. May I give him a beating? Mother wiped her sweat. You'll have to ask your mother-in-law about that. After all, he's not my son. Lastly, I said solemnly, Mother, do you trust me? Mother gazed deeply at me and said, You are my child, and more than that, you were raised by your grandfather. Wise, brave, and full of integrity. If I can't trust you, there's no one else I can trust. With those words, it was enough. And so, with the people I brought back from Jeju Pass and a lavish dowry, I married into the Jinyang estate in a grand procession, just as everyone had hoped. Second wives rarely have such generous dowries or such a spectacle. The people of Jinyang estate were sharp-eyed and quickly realized my status and my family was no less than my sister's. On our wedding night, I intended to have a clear talk with Aiden Zhao. From then on, we would live together, raise children, and keep to our own affairs without interfering. But who knew it would be past midnight when he finally stumbled back to the room, dead drunk, supported by a few servants, and collapsed into bed without a word. My maids exchanged uneasy glances, murmuring, How could the groom act like this? Skipping the ceremonial toast and consummating the marriage on the wedding night. It's simply unacceptable. Besides, he's no inexperienced youth. How could he let himself get so easily drunk? In the end, it still comes down to not valuing me enough as his second wife. I suspect he doesn't want me to conceive too soon either, lest it affect the 2 children his late sister left behind. Since our goals align, there's no need to make things difficult for him. I waved my hand, signaling my attendants to change his clothes and toss him onto the daybed. The next day, Aiden Zhao woke slowly. I was already dressed and made up, with a room full of maidservants waiting for him. Seeing my calm expression, devoid of resentment or grievance, he seemed surprised and explained, Last night, Marquis Zhongshan and the others kept plying me with wine. I cut off his feeble excuse and said, Husband, it's time to go to the ancestral hall to formally acknowledge the family. Aiden Zhao, taken aback by my cold demeanor and icy gaze, paused for a moment before replying, Very well, I'll get ready. Once he was properly dressed, he led me toward the Zhao family ancestral hall. Not another word was spoken the entire way. I'd heard from my sister's former maid that Aiden Zhao is a strict, steady man, sparing with words, preferring implication over bluntness, and commands considerable respect at home. When sister was with him, she often had to be extra careful in guessing his intentions. If she guessed correctly, she would naturally earn his approval. If she guessed wrong, he wouldn't scold her harshly, but would simply treat her coldly, leaving her to figure things out on her own. After spending several years with him, sister had always served him with meticulous care. On our wedding night, he deliberately got drunk. If I had responded with gentle understanding, he would surely have given me a favorable impression, but I didn't. So in his eyes, I am nothing but an unvirtuous and disobedient woman. These self-important scholar officials all have their own ways of covertly disciplining their wives. Unfortunately, I have no patience for his methods. During the family introduction ceremony, I finally met all the relatives of Jinyang estate. The Jinyang estate was bustling with family members. Aside from the first and second branches being legitimate, there were also third and fourth branches, all of them born of concubines, and I heard there were several married off aunts as well. The dowager countess appeared gentle and kind, though her pale complexion suggested she was in poor health. Second Madam Li, the lady of the house, was shrewd yet domineering, her words laced with hidden barbs. I'd heard my sister always ended up at a disadvantage in their dealings. It was clear she intended to assert dominance over me as well. After the formal greetings among peers, my sister's 2 children were brought forward by their nurse to pay their respects to me. Ilara performed her courtesies with proper decorum, but Leo appeared timid and hesitant, almost fearful. Aiden Zhao frowned, his eyes flashing with displeasure at his son's lack of confidence. Under his father's stern gaze, Leo's fear only intensified. I sighed inwardly, my hands already curling into fists I struggled to keep relaxed. After the family introductions, the Dowager Countess gently suggested I retire to my courtyard to rest. I acquiesced gracefully and took both children with me as I left. Once in my own quarters, I first instructed servants to arrange my dowry and the staff I'd brought with me. Then I told Alara and Leo, from now on, you'll come here every morning to have breakfast with me. Alara, having been taught by her nanny, answered earnestly, yes, mother. Leo's nanny song, whispered softly, Madam, the young master is still too young. He cannot rise too early. Perhaps this servant could bring him over after dinner each day. I glanced at Nanny Song. I had long heard she was dutiful and treated Leo as her own son. This indeed appeared true, but a child raised long, term by a woman with such limited perspective would never survive in this noble household. I said calmly, Leo is 3 years old, no longer that young. Our breakfast time here isn't particularly early. With proper rest and routine, there should be no difficulty rising. Looking into Nanny Song's eyes, I continued slowly. The master is busy with official duties and is only home for breakfast each day. Leo has already lost his birth mother. Must he now go entire days without even seeing his father? The less contact Leo has with Aiden Zhao, the more fearful he becomes. A boy cannot grow up forever sheltered by his nanny's embrace. He needs his father's guidance and cultivation. Nanny Song murmured, yes, I'll follow your instructions, madam. Seeing Nanny Song silenced, Alara's wet nurse Nanny Zhai revealed a faint look of smugness in her eyes. After making the arrangements, I had the children return to rest. And so, the days unfolded with calm and order. Since I cut him off in front of everyone last time, Aiden Zhao never came to explain himself, burying himself entirely in official duties instead. At night, he wouldn't come to my chambers, going directly to his concubines Lu and Sue instead. Gradually, gossip began circulating within the estate that I was not favored by the Lord Heir. I turned a deaf ear. After all, he still joined me for breakfast daily, granting me at least some semblance of proper respect. I knew Aiden Zhao was punishing me, trying to blunt my edge, but truth be told, I couldn't have asked for more. I had no mind to deal with him anyway. Each day, I had the kitchen prepare meals to Alara and Leo's tastes, carefully oversaw their daily needs, and took the chance to let the two children bond with their father. At first, Leo was so reserved around Aiden Zhao that he didn't even dare pick up his chopsticks. After a few days, he finally mustered the courage to speak occasionally, at least to say I want steamed buns or I'd like some millet porridge. And soon after, his speech became much less hesitant. He was still young and easily influenced by the adults around him. Moreover, children naturally yearn for affection. No, one dislikes their own father. I only acted warm and kind when the children were present. The moment they left, my expression turned cold, and I refused to so much as glance at Aiden Zhao. Even someone as unflappable as Aiden Zhao couldn't help but feel unsettled by such a stark contrast in my behavior. Once, Alara brought me a decorative sash she had woven. Though still clumsy and rough, I praised it to the skies. So pretty, so beautiful. Is this for mother, Alara? I said with a smile. Alara blushed and replied, Mum, I handed the sash to Aiden Zhao and said, look how clever our Alara is. Just as skilled as sister was when she was little. Aiden Zhao was accustomed to me only acknowledging him at such moments, responding with a soft murmur. I gestured for him to elaborate, my tone laced with a subtle threat. Husband, isn't that so? Aiden Zhao glanced at me before saying, Alara did well. Alara was visibly delighted, chirping brightly, I'll make one for father too when we return. Leo cried out, Sister, I want one too. Me too. But Alara remained silent, retreating to her seat without a word. I'd noticed it before. Alara seemed to harbor some dislike for Leo. Logically, as full siblings who'd both lost their mother, they ought to be closer and more united. Why was it like this? While I was lost in thought, the two children had already been taken back. Yet Aiden Zhao lingered, calling out, Madam? Why was he still here? I frowned slightly. Husband, is there something else? Zhao Yuhua wasn't angry, but instead said with great interest, "In the future, may I call you by your given name? Wu Jiu, what's gotten into him?" I raised an eyebrow and said, "Husband may call me whatever you wish. It's just a name." Zhao Yuhua said frankly, "Wu Jiu, we are husband and wife now. No need for such formality. You may call me Yuhua as well." Seeing my silence, he said softly, "You've done everything so well since arriving here. I've noticed, I was worried, that after your sister passed, the two children would suffer, but I never expected you to be so considerate of them. See, even a dog has a heart and can tell good from bad." I said calmly, "You flatter me, husband. This is merely my duty." Seeing I wouldn't call him by his name, Zhao Yuhua smiled self-deprecatingly and said, "Never mind, we have plenty of time. You're still young and inexperienced. I'll be more patient, but remember, don't let favor spoil you. As a wife, it's best to be gentle, kind, respectful, and frugal." Before he could finish, I set my teacup down with a sharp clink. "I have matters to attend to and must take my leave." What nonsense. Who has the patience to listen to this? Even my grandfather wasn't this paternalistic. Worried about Alara and Leo, I quietly made my way to Leo's quarters. The maid said Nanny Song had taken Leo to the garden to play. I nodded and headed straight for the garden. But as soon as I reached the garden entrance, I heard the sound of two children arguing inside. "This is mine. What's yours is mine. My mother gave this to me." "What mother? Your mother is dead. That's your stepmother." Furious, I rushed in and saw Colin, the eldest son of Lady Li from the second branch, arguing with Leo. Colin was 2 years older than Leo and noticeably taller. He snatched the 9 rings puzzle from Leo's hands and shoved him hard. Leo's eyes welled with tears, red, rimmed and utterly pitiful, but Nanny Song and the maid seemed accustomed to it, merely comforting Leo by saying there were other toys in the yard. Suppressing my rage, I strode over, snatched the toy back, and scolded, "Colin, you're the older brother. How could you bully your younger sibling?" Seeing me, Leo sobbed as if spotting a savior. "Mother, Colin has taken so many of my toys. He keeps snatching them." Nanny Song hurriedly interjected, "Madam, children play and squabble. There's no need for such." I shot her a cold glare that silenced her, then tapped Colin's forehead. "At such a young age, why aren't you learning to behave properly?" Colin, who had never been scolded like this before, burst into tears with a wail. The nanny beside him quickly stepped forward to shield him, protesting, "Madam, children are just playing around. As an adult, how can you take a child's things? Just now, a whole group of adults stood by like statues. Now you pop up to make a scene?" I backhanded her across the face. I knew Colin wouldn't turn bad on his own. "It's you wicked servants corrupting him." The matron clutched her cheek, sobbing, How dare you hit me?" I said coldly. Colin snatches Leo's belongings, and instead of stopping him, you egg him on. Don't you deserve worse? Let me make this clear. Leo may have lost his birth mother, but he still has me. Willow you. He has the Yu estate. My grandfather is General Valiant, defending our homeland at Jialing Pass. If he learns you've bullied his great-grandson, he'll have your head mounted on a banner. My words left the matron and several maids pale and trembling with fear. They knew all this well enough. They simply assumed Leo's maternal family couldn't intervene here. After I disciplined them, Nanny Song stammered, "Madam, isn't this too harsh? They are, after all, from the second branch. Second Madam Li, I said sharply. When someone bullies Leo, instead of telling me, you tell the child to endure it. Leo is the eldest legitimate grandson of the Zhao family. Should he really have to suffer such indignity? What kind of logic is that? Making a scene is precisely to let everyone in the mansion hear, so they'll think twice before looking down on sisters, 2 children from now on. In noble households like this, the servants all follow the example set by their superiors. If you aren't respected from the start, life will only get harder from here on out." Before evening even fell, Second Madam Li had already lodged a complaint with the Dowager Countess. The new sister-in-law just arrived and already struck Colin and his wet nurse. Who knows where she gets such a temper? The two children were playing just fine together. Isn't this just pure bullying? The Dowager Countess, advanced in years, values family harmony above all, wishing for all her descendants to get along warmly, and dislikes troublemakers like me who stir up conflict. When she sent for me, all the women of the household were waiting in the main hall, not daring to make a sound. You could have heard a pin drop. I raised an eyebrow. Such a trivial matter. And they're making it out to be some grand showdown. Eldest daughter. In law, I would like to hear your explanation. The Dowager Countess addressed me with rare solemnity. Second Madam Lee chimed in with feigned grievance. Sister, in law is still young. It's natural for her to have a temper, but our Colin is only 5. He was so frightened he developed a fever after returning home. Ultimately, it's my fault as his mother. She's quite skilled at twisting the truth. No wonder my sister always suffered her underhanded schemes in the past. Before I could speak, Aiden Zhao also returned and said to the Dowager Countess, Wu Jiu is still young, and her maternal instincts may have clouded her judgment. Before he could finish, the Dowager Countess shook her head disapprovingly. That is no excuse to strike and scold Colin. Family harmony should always come first. Over the years, Lady Lee had often brought Colin to curry favor with the Dowager Countess. Though both were grandsons, the Dowager Countess undoubtedly favored the former. Aiden Zhao, who valued filial piety above all, urged me anxiously upon seeing his mother's anger. Wu Jiu, apologize to mother at once, and make amends to your sister. In law, apologize? For what? I sneered, pushed him aside, and stepped forward, saying calmly, what happened today was something I had no choice but to do. The Dowager Countess frowned. What do you mean by that? Second Madam Lee cried out. Sister, in law is truly stubborn, bullying a child and still acting righteous. I don't even ask for an apology. I just beg her not to frighten our Colin anymore. The second branch has only this one son. At this, Aiden Zhao also expressed displeasure. Why must you be so obstinate? This crowd closing in on me felt like they wanted to devour me alive. But I wasn't raised on fear. Facing foreign enemies at Jeju Pass, I never even flinched. How could a room full of incompetent women and children intimidate me? I enunciated each word clearly. It was only today that I learned Colin has been bullying Leo over the loss of his mother for a full year. Sister, in law, you knew all along, yet did nothing to restrain him? How heartbroken my sister must be, knowing this from beyond the grave. After speaking, I produced a list. It listed all the toys and items Colin had snatched over the past year. 9 rings puzzles, bamboo dragonflies, pellet drums, glass lanterns, a full page's worth. Just look at this. I'll say it outright. This glass lantern was part of my sister's dowry, and even this you couldn't leave alone. Is this just children's mischief? Or is the second branch trying to rob us? If you want something, just say it. The Yu family can afford it. We'll treat it like tossing scraps to beggars. But don't make it so ugly. You're ruining the children's bond. Lady Lee took the page, her face slightly changing. There's no such things. Sister, in law, you're making this up. I sneered. Whether there is or not, why not check your courtyard? My sister's dowry items all bear the Yu family mark. If they're not there, I'll serve you tea and apologize. But if they are, no need for trouble. Just swallow every last one of them, and our Yu family will let it go. I spoke with absolute certainty, and Lady Lee's face turned pale. These were all small, trivial items. She must have seen plenty of them around. A few pieces here and there wouldn't matter, but in such quantity, it becomes hard to explain. The situation instantly reversed. The Dowager Countess frowned at Lady Lee and asked, Is this true? Lady Lee murmured in defense. Not that much. It's just children's play, among brothers. Exchanging trinkets is common. I burst out laughing. If it's an exchange, why don't we have anything from the second branch? So, this is what you call an exchange. What a ridiculous joke. After a few feeble attempts to justify herself, Lady Lee could only say, It must be those cunning servants around Colin who deceived me. Mother, Rest assured, I will punish them severely when I return. This won't happen again. By now, everyone understood what had happened. After a moment's thought, the Dowager Countess said, Leo has lost his mother. He's already pitiable. You must educate Colin properly when you return. He must never do this again. Lady Lee quickly replied, You're right, Mother. Colin is only 5. What does he understand? He must have been led astray by those around him. And sister-in-law, you could have just spoken to me properly. The Dowager Countess nodded slowly, trying to sweep it under the rug and even shift the blame. Who agreed to that? I declared clearly, Dowager Countess. Colin has repeatedly snatched things from Leo. This ultimately stems from a lack of discipline. It's manageable among family, but if such behavior spills outside, it would truly become a public spectacle. Moreover, not everything is meant to be taken. Among the items was a jade ruby scepter bestowed by His Majesty upon my grandfather, who then gifted it to my sister. If word gets out that an imperial gift was seized, the consequences could be severe. After I spoke, everyone's expressions finally shifted. An imperial gift? The entire household of the estate paled in unison. Lady Lee's tone wavered slightly as she said, What imperial gift? This is no matter for careless claims. I replied, I knew you wouldn't dare admit it. Second Madam Lee, fortunately, I haven't been idle this afternoon. Ruby, tell the second madam where the jade ruby is now. Ruby stepped forward from beside me and said crisply, I've ascertained that all the items Colin took are stored in a chest under his bed. No fewer than 30 or 50 pieces, including the jade ruby. This maid once served as a scout at Ju Pass. Employing her skills in inner household scheming is truly underutilizing her talents. I turned to the Dowager Countess and said, Mother, whether the items exist or not, you need only send someone to check to know. The Dowager Countess was put on the spot and had no choice but to send her trusted matron to investigate. Not wanting to give them a chance to hide anything, I told Ruby, You go along as well. Ruby replied loudly, Yes. Before long, that chest of toys was carried back. Lady Lee had no further arguments. Her face turned ashen, as if she wished the ground would swallow her. She knew Colin had been bullying Leo, but never imagined it was to this extent. This is all a misunderstanding. Sister-in-law, Mother, it was all caused by deceitful servants. I sighed and took out that small jade ruby scepter. It was once my cherished possession, often played with at Ju Pass. Later, when Sister sent me clothes she had sewn herself, I gifted this to her in return. Though she is gone, the ruby remains. I presented it to the Dowager Countess, letting her see the imperial household's mark clearly. Seeing the jade ruby scepter discovered, Lady Lee was finally terrified. She turned pale as she looked at the Dowager Countess. Mother, this is truly a misunderstanding. Children's play shouldn't be taken seriously. I will discipline Colin properly when we return and make him apologize to Leo. Sister-in-law, please be magnanimous. We're family. Let's just drop this matter. As she spoke, she attempted to kneel before me. I sidestepped to avoid her gesture, keeping my gaze fixed on the Dowager Countess and Aiden Zhao. The Dowager Countess also looked disgraced by the commotion. She sighed deeply and said, In the end, it is my failure to manage the household strictly. I've let down Leo's mother. Hearing her mother speak this way, Aiden Zhao said to me, The matter is clear now. Why not let it go? We are all family. Family? I deliberately married into this household precisely because I feared Colin and Alara would encounter such family. This matter is too grave for a mere woman like me to decide alone. I must summon my relatives and send word to my grandfather before it can be properly resolved. Now that I've caught you red-handed, if I don't squeeze every last drop of truth from you today, I am not will you. Seeing my determination to escalate the matter, the Zhao family's expressions turned grim. I softly instructed Ruby, ride swiftly to my parents' home and summon my father and mother. Tell them there is urgent business to discuss. Ruby replied, Understood. The Dowager Countess and Lady Lee were frantic and at a loss, exclaiming, Why must it come to this? There's no need for such measures. Lady Li, sweating profusely in her anxiety, pleaded, I apologize to you, sister-in-law. Please do not take offense. Do not be angry. Aiden Zhao fixed his gaze on me, his words laced with a veiled threat. Willow, you ought to know when to stop. Know when to stop. When Cullen bullied Leo, why did no one tell him to know when to stop? I lifted my chin slightly and declared with solemn dignity, Husband, I do not understand your meaning. Matters concerning imperial gifts are of grave importance. They must not be treated lightly. As an official in court, you surely understand this better than I. A mere woman. Doesn't he enjoy preaching lofty principles? Is there any principle greater than heaven, earth, the sovereign, and one's parents? Aiden Zhao fumed in exasperation. If today's matter gets out, the Zhao family's reputation will be utterly ruined. Just as Aiden Zhao and I were entangled, an aged voice came from the hall, and the old earl slowly stepped out, saying, Everyone, hold your tongues. Seeing that the old earl had been disturbed, everyone quickly bowed in respect. The dowager countess looked ashamed and sighed. It's all my fault. Lady Li even knelt on the ground, weeping. Please, father-in-law, uphold justice for me. Cullen is still young. He truly didn't mean it. I will strictly discipline him from now on to prevent any further mistakes. The old earl's gaze slowly swept over everyone's faces before finally settling on me. He said, gravely, Daughter-in-law of the eldest son, what do you want? Speak plainly. Truly worthy of the old earl, he knew I wouldn't let this rest today. I bowed slightly and said softly, After sister passed, mother worried day and night. To prevent the children from suffering, she arranged my marriage into this household. Alara and Leo are not just descendants of the Zhao family. They carry our Yu family's blood as well. How could you, sister-in-law, allow Cullen to act this way without fearing you'd break the family's hearts? Lady Li dared not offer any more excuses, scarcely daring to breathe, and kept her head bowed low. The old earl nodded and said, What do you propose? This meant terms could be negotiated. I said coldly, Since Cullen is precious, it falls to you, sister-in-law, to discipline him strictly. But those servants, their offenses cannot be forgiven. Please hand over their deeds of servitude to me. I will help retrain them and uphold household discipline. Lady Li looked up abruptly, her eyes filled with disbelief and resentment. If she surrendered her people to me, she would undoubtedly become the laughingstock of the entire estate. The old earl looked at me deeply and said, Eldest daughter-in-law, being too severe may harm your reputation. I said calmly, Reputation? We're disciplining servants behind closed doors. Who would know? Only if word gets out would there be gossip. But since I've married into this family, I am now a daughter-in-law of the earl's household. Our fates are intertwined. I doubt anyone would dare gossip behind my back. Seeing my unwavering stance, the old earl finally sighed and said, Second branch's wife, hand over their deeds of servitude to your sister-in-law. Lady Li cried out anxiously, Father, how can this be allowed? The old earl slammed the table and shouted, Do as you're told. Otherwise, you disgraceful woman, I'll have my second son divorce you and send you back to your family. The threat of divorce terrified Lady Li into trembling, and she dared not speak another word. The old earl's face darkened severely as he declared word by word, Let this matter end here. None shall speak of it again. You all understand. Family shame must not be aired in public. As he spoke his final words, his gaze fell directly upon me. I pretended not to notice and joined the others in unison. Yes, at this point, Lady Li had lost both face and standing entirely. Her face deathly pale, she handed over all the servants' deeds to me, not daring to say another word. Though her eyes brimmed with resentment, I leisurely took the box containing the deeds, leaned close to her ear, and whispered, I'm not my sister. I don't tolerate any nonsense. Consider this a light warning. If you dare provoke me again, I'll rip out your intestines and wrap them around Cullen's neck. Lady Li jolted her head up, staring at me with sheer terror. I responded with a smug, triumphant smile, making it clear I wasn't joking. First battle, decisive victory. I led the crowd and grandly returned to my own courtyard. Ruby had already investigated everything and said to me, "This granny's son is the worst." It was her who egged Colin on to bully Leo. "This Chunya is neither good nor bad, and this Shoshua is no good either." In just a few words, she pointed out all these servants' faults. I said coldly, "Enough. Give each 30 strokes. Then sell them into servitude in the bitter cold lands. I'm making an example of them now. If I'm not ruthless enough, it won't serve as a proper deterrent." Upon hearing this, the maids and servants begged for mercy. "Madam, spare us. Madam, we were wrong." For a time, pleas for mercy rose and fell throughout the courtyard. I waved my hand. "Take them away for punishment. Make sure the entire Earl's household can hear it." Ruby rolled up her sleeves. "Who and his men are best at military style caning? I'll have them do it." Who was also someone I brought back from J Pass. He previously handled punishments in the raid squad, but if who takes charge, will any of them survive? I said quietly, "Tell who to exercise restraint. They must be left alive." During this period, I still hadn't confronted Lady Lee directly. This was the opportunity one had been waiting for. What I want is to firmly establish my authority. Just then, Aiden Zhao returned to the courtyard with a dark expression and said coldly, "I need to speak with you." The old Earl had just kept him behind, no doubt criticizing him for failing to control his wife. But what does his father scolding him have to do with me? I raised an eyebrow and returned to the main hall with him. "Willow, you've gone too far. How could someone as virtuous and gentle as your sister have a blood sister like you?" Aiden Zhao scolded. "If he hadn't brought up my sister, I wouldn't be this furious. If my sister were still alive and saw Leo being bullied like this, she'd be even harsher than I am." I retorted angrily. Aiden Zhao said coldly, "You are the matriarch of this household. How can you be so full of malice? You've just married in and already dare to openly defy your husband and rebuke your elders. What won't you dare to do in the future?" I shot back. "And you have the nerve to blame me? If you had taken responsibility and properly cared for the 2 children, would this have happened? As their father, you failed in your duty first and refused to reflect on it afterward. I'm cleaning up your mess, and you still dare to resent me? Who gave you the audacity?" It was the first time Aiden Zhao had been challenged so boldly by me, and he snarled hatefully, "Willow, I raised my voice. "So what? Let me tell you, Aiden Zhao, out of respect for my sister, I might give you some face, but don't you dare push your luck. Willow, don't go looking for trouble, but if anyone dares to mess with me, even if it's the king of heaven himself, I'll throw down without hesitation." Aiden Zhao was so angry he laughed instead, saying, Fine, very well." Since we'd already torn off the polite facade, I no longer bothered pretending, sneering disdainfully, "I'm doing just fine. No need for your commentary." Aiden Zhao could no longer contain himself, muttering vulgar woman, "Have it your way," before storming off in a huff. After making a scene at the Earl's manor, the effect was quite satisfactory. Originally, as the young new second wife of the main branch, everyone in the Earl's household had looked down on me somewhat, but after this incident, they all realized I was both courageous and clever, and not one to be trifled with. No one dared neglect the 2 children of the main branch anymore. My grandfather once taught me, when unsure, one may bide their time temporarily, but when an opportunity arises, strike decisively to eliminate the threat for good. Though Lady Lee now held a grudge against me, she had learned her lesson and didn't dare provoke me again. The Dowager Countess and the old Earl strongly disapproved of my assertive manner, but as I had committed no other faults, they could do nothing about it. Alara and Leo didn't witness my verbal sparring with the scholars firsthand, but after hearing the servants' accounts, they were utterly in awe of me, especially Leo. Though young, he clearly understood who treated him well and who did not. Only Aiden Zhao held a grudge against me, to the point of refusing to come to the main house for breakfast altogether. Did he think I actually cared about his presence? How dare he try to manipulate me with such petty tactics? I pretended not to notice, acting as if he simply didn't exist, but the children couldn't ignore it like I did. When Aiden Zhao didn't show, their little heads would turn this way and that, clearly missing him. Blood truly is thicker than water. Since Aiden Zhao refused to come, I would force him to, these past few days, avoiding the main house. He'd naturally been spending time with his concubines. For every day, he stayed away. I made concubine Sue and concubine Lou stand in attendance at my quarters all day long until their backs ached and their legs grew sore. As they were leaving, I said coolly, "Do you know how to explain this to the master?" The concubines understood perfectly, murmuring about how, when immortals fight, it's the little ghosts who suffer. So, no matter where Aiden Zhao went, they would make excuses or persuade him to reconcile with me. Aiden Zhao was furious, grumbling about how women and petty men are impossible to deal with, and simply stopped returning to the inner quarters, sleeping in his study every night. I couldn't touch him directly, but I could make life difficult for the servants in his study. After about half a month of forceful reorganization, I had disciplined every last one of Aiden Zhao's attendants. Finally, he seemed to have a change of heart and resumed having breakfast in the main house. The children were delighted to see him, and I returned to speaking softly and gently. As soon as the two children left, I immediately set down my teacup, signaling that it was time for him to go. Aiden Zhao studied me coldly for a moment before saying, "I truly don't understand what goes on in your heart." Without even lifting my eyelids, I replied lazily, "A woman's heart is as deep as the ocean. Naturally, you wouldn't understand." Aiden Zhao turned around and said calmly, "Willow Yu, is that jade Rui scepter truly an imperial gift?" My heart skipped a beat as I replied slowly, "My grandfather received numerous commendations from His Majesty, and our household is filled with countless imperial gifts. Why would I lie?" Aiden Zhao let out a cold laugh. "It is indeed crafted by the imperial workshops, but I know your sister well. If it were truly a gift from your grandfather, she wouldn't have so casually handed it to Leo to play with. Unless, of course, it was given to her by someone else." He left those words hanging and walked away just like that. I let out a sigh and gently took the jade Rui scepter out from the drawer, stroking it softly. It felt warm and smooth, delicate and charming. Back at Jeju Pass, I used to take it out to play with often. Those days, never mind. I shook my head lightly. The past is beyond retrieval. One must always look forward now. Aiden Zhao proved more astute than I had imagined. It seems all these years in office haven't been for nothing. Just as I was lost in thought, Ruby entered with a grave expression and whispered a few words in my ear. "So that's how it is," I said. Ruby said indignantly, "Miss, should we seize her for interrogation?" I shook my head. "Be careful not to break the jade vase while hitting the rat. For Alara's sake, we must proceed with caution." A few days later, I called Alara over privately and asked her, "Would you like to attend the Wang family's girls' school?" The Wang family, Vice Minister of Rights, had invited several highly esteemed female instructors to run a school at their residence, exclusively for noble young ladies from closely affiliated families. This was the connection I specifically sought through my mother after returning to my maiden home. Alara didn't quite understand and asked, "Mother, what does going to school mean? Is it like when our male cousins attend the academy?" I smiled and said, "Alara, a girls' school is somewhat different. The books studied are more suited to women, and you'll also learn music theory, painting, embroidery, and so on. Moreover, attending school helps you gain knowledge and understanding, and you can make friends your own age. It will only benefit you." After hearing my explanation, Alara immediately understood and nodded with a blush. I would like to go to school. I was overjoyed and made all the necessary arrangements. Before departure, I found an excuse to keep Alara's wet nurse, Nanny Zhai, behind. Alara had always been deeply attached to Nanny Zhai. Seeing her stay behind, she glanced back several times before finally turning away. Once the carriage was out of sight, I said to Nanny Zhai, "Alara is gone. It's time for you to explain yourself." Nanny Zhai paused, then simpered. "What does the mistress mean?" Ruby snapped sharply, "How dare you smirk?" Seeing my cold, mocking gaze fixed on her, Nanny Zhai finally began to understand. Her eyes darted, but she stubbornly insisted. This servant doesn't understand what the mistress means. Sitting in the seat of honor, I watched her stiffen her neck with a defiant, unrepentant air, and felt nothing but disgust. Do you think just because you acted in secret, no one would find out? What did you say to Alara to make her despise Leo so? My sister entrusted Alara to you on her deathbed, and you, heartless and faithless, dare betray that trust. After spending these days together, I noticed Alara's attitude toward Leo was strikingly cold. After my confrontation with Lady Lee, I once asked Alara, since Colin had been bullying Leo for so long, why hadn't she, as his sister, stepped in to help? If they stood together, they wouldn't have been bullied so badly. Alara hemmed and hawed, unable to give a proper answer. Right then, I understood. The child must have been misled and manipulated by someone with ill intentions, and that person turned out to be Nanny Jai, whom Alara relied on the most. Nanny Jai's face stiffened, but she recovered swiftly, putting on a hurt expression, and said, Madam, I don't understand your words. Everything I've done has been for the young Mrs. Good. I took a deep breath. Some people just won't admit the truth until they're faced with undeniable evidence. Ruby sneered. Nanny Jai, did you tell the young miss that the late mistress died because she gave birth to Leo, and that, if it weren't for him, she would still be alive? Such heart-wrenching words. I would never have uncovered them if I hadn't had someone keep watch in Alara's room for several days. Nanny Jai, having her secret exposed, panicked and shook her head. No, this servant never said that. I swear, I never uttered such words. I stared at her and said slowly, I see through your little schemes clearly. After sister passed, you clashed with Leo's wet nurse, Nanny Song, so you drove a wedge between the two children, making Alara recognize only you and obey only you. Besides these words, she said, plenty more. Things like others aren't sincere toward the young miss. Only this servant truly cares for you, and so on. I sneered. As for why, it must be for your good. For nothing, brother. You stole Alara's jewelry to pawn, and when Nanny Song found out, you resorted to this foolish act. Bring him in. As soon as I spoke, a disheveled, bruised man was dragged out by Jade. At the sight of him, Nanny Jai gasped. Baojen, what happened to you? A trace of resentment flashed in her eyes as she said, Madam, why are you arresting my brother? He's innocent, Ruby shouted. How dare you? How dare you speak to the mistress like that? I waved my hand and said, Your brother is a master of drinking, whoring, and gambling, relying on the influence of the Earl's household to bully men and women outside. His evil deeds are notorious. If you weren't still somewhat useful, I would have flayed him alive long ago. The man called Baojen cried out for help. Sis, save me. I had Jade take him away, and said to Nanny Jai word by word, if you were only engaged in petty theft, I might still tolerate you, but you drove a wedge between Alara and Leo. This shows a wicked heart, and I cannot keep you. Nanny Jai wiped her tears, raised her head, and said, Mistress, this servant was assigned to Alara by the former mistress. If you dismiss me, the Yu family's mistress will not agree. You dare bring my mother into this? Indeed, you have quite the nerve. I sneered. Mother has long said that everything is to be done as I say. She gave me your deed of servitude long ago. I can deal with you however I see fit. If I hadn't gotten the go ahead from Mother early on, I wouldn't have stepped into this mess. Nanny Jai still refused to give up, flustered as she pleaded, Madam, Alara has been with me since birth, and can hardly bear to be apart from me. If you dismiss me, aren't you afraid she'll resent and hate you? Ruby said angrily, You're just a nanny. Don't overestimate your importance. I knew what Nanny Jai was scheming. Nothing more than using Alara as an excuse. The child is still young and doesn't understand many things. After all, I'm not her birth mother. If I forcibly dismiss Nanny Jai, Alara might well grow to resent me, but precisely because of that, I cannot keep her. I looked coldly at Nanny Jai and said, When Alara returns from school today, you will tell her that your brother is getting married and wants you to go live in comfort. So I've shown extra kindness by releasing you from the household. Come back to visit her whenever you have time in the future. As for what happens after, that's not your concern. Nanny, Zhai stared at me intently, not uttering a word. I said calmly, Nanny Zhai, let me be clear. You have no other choice. If you say one wrong word later, your brother will lose a body part. Think carefully. How many cuts can a man like him endure? Nanny, Zhai let out a hoarse cry, struggling violently to lunge forward. Ruby restrained her with one hand and snapped. You won't yield until you see the coffin, I said coldly. Let her go. Let her think it through herself. Such matters can only be handled properly with Nanny Zhai's cooperation. Nanny, Zhai trembled all over, her face wearing the expression of a cornered beast fighting desperately. I didn't rush her, only watched her quietly. After about the time it takes for an incense stick to burn, she finally deflated like a lantern, collapsing to the ground with a look of utter defeat and despair. I said, have you thought it through? Nanny, Zhai whispered, this servant understands. After I'm gone, please have mercy on Miss Alara. Treat her well. I sneered. Alara is my niece. I will naturally treat her well. Who needs a wicked servant like you to remind me? At this point, the matter was nearly settled. After Alara returned from school, Nanny Zhai's expression shifted repeatedly until, unable to resist her affection for her younger brother, she finally spoke those words to Alara. Alara's face paled dramatically as she clung tearfully, begging her not to leave. Ruby advised from the side, Miss, you must understand. Nanny Zhai is going to a better life, reuniting with her brother and his family. If you stop her, she'll have no one to depend on in her old age. Wouldn't that be even more pitiful? Tearfully, Alara asked, Nanny, is this true? Didn't you promise you'd never leave me? Nanny Zhai's heart ached intensely, though she had pilfered small things over the years. Her fondness for Alara was genuine. Life in the Earl's manor was so comfortable, she would rather die than leave. But her brother was her heart's treasure, and not daring to defy me, she finally gritted her teeth and said, what Miss Ruby says is true. This servant is going to a better life. Please don't worry about me anymore. Miss Ruby took the opportunity to say, Nanny will surely come back to visit you when she has time. Miss Alara, just wait patiently. Nanny, Zhai nodded stiffly, hugged Alara tightly, and said tearfully, Miss, you must listen to the madam from now on. Live well. Nanny must go now. After Nanny Zhai left, Alara cried bitterly until she fell asleep, tear stains still visible on her little face. I left Yara, the gentlest and most clever among the maids, with Alara to comfort the child properly. Back when sister fell ill and passed away, Nanny Zhai was the only one who stayed by Alara's side throughout that year. For a child to suddenly lose her mother, and now her closest nanny, is no small blow, but I believe she can overcome it. Alara is no longer alone. She has me, Leo, Aiden Zhao, and her classmates and teachers at the academy. In time, her world will grow broader, and she will gradually forget this scheming old servant. In the days that followed, Alara remained despondent all day long. I said to her, Mother understands your feelings for Nanny Zhai, but all gatherings must end eventually. Nanny Zhai has gone to live a better life, and you should be happy for her. Alara replied with red-rimmed eyes. Mother, after my birth mother passed away, Nanny Zhai said I only had her. Now she doesn't want me either. My heart ached slightly. I closed my eyes for a moment and said softly, how could you only have her? You still have me, your father, your paternal grandparents, your maternal grandfather and grandmother, and Leo. We are your family, the ones who love you most. I held her shoulders and encouraged her. Alara, you're great. Grandfather was a great general who defended our nation, a true hero. You are also a daughter of a military family, and Mother believes in you. You can persevere through any hardship. Alara looked up at me, her gaze gradually growing resolute. She nodded firmly. Mother, I understand now. Alara would slowly grow and mature. I wanted to teach her not just about parting, but also about resilience. Alara soon recovered, and even her attitude toward Leo finally began to change. During this period, I often taught her about the importance of sibling bonds and earnestly clarified her mother's passing had absolutely nothing to do with Leo. This was indeed the truth. These words weren't just spoken by me. Yara would say them too, and so would her tutor. Gradually, Ilara let go of her wariness toward Leo. The siblings grew closer, sharing everything and becoming as thick as thieves. My handling of Nanny Shy wasn't exactly discreet. While it could be hidden from children like Ilara and Leo, it couldn't escape the notice of others in the Earl's household. To the Dowager Countess and Lady Lee, my only backing was the Yu family, and by so ruthlessly expelling an old servant left by my sister, my maiden family would surely hold some resentment toward me. Yet, not only did my mother not resent me, but after seeing the changes in the two children, she was so moved that she hugged me and wept bitterly. Then, with a grand gesture, she splurged and gifted me a horse ranch on the outskirts of the capital. Mother wanted to thank me and acknowledge my efforts. Those in the Earl's mansion, who had been waiting to see me fail, finally retreated in disappointment. I was deeply moved. Although Mother never raised me, she understood me well. In the past, even with worries on my mind, staying at the Earl's mansion didn't feel so unbearable. But after resolving all the issues with the children, I increasingly found the days harder to endure. 10 years. How many decades does a person truly have in life? I miss the winds of Jeju Pass, the sands of Jeju Pass, and the version of myself who once galloped freely on horseback. I've grown too wild at heart to tolerate such constraints. My mother buying this horse ranch truly struck a chord deep within me. Gazing at the vast, open grounds, my spirits soared with excitement. The horses I brought back from Jeju Pass hadn't stretched their muscles in so long. They'd grown plump. I ran wildly all day, feeling not the slightest fatigue, but instead brimming with energy. Now, this is the way life ought to be lived. After that, I spent every day at the horse farm, sometimes bringing Ilara and Leo along, having them ride 2 small ponies for fun. By convention, as the Lord Heir's wife, I shouldn't leave the estate daily, but with the Dowager Countess uninvolved and Lady Lee wary of crossing me, I simply claimed to be managing the horse farm. No one dared object. During this period, Aiden Zhao also changed considerably. He'd come to realize I held no affection for him, yet he seemed accustomed to our interactions, visiting the main quarters more frequently, sometimes hinting at staying overnight. I'd spoken every harsh word imaginable to Aiden Zhao, truly baffled why he still took an interest in me. But after rejecting him repeatedly, I grew concerned about the impact on the 2 children. After all, Aiden Zhao is their biological father. From Jeju Pass, I brought 4 capable aides: Ruby, Jade, Yara, and Zinnia. Ruby excels in intelligence gathering. Jade specializes in interrogation. Yara is perceptive and understands people's hearts, while Zinnia is a ruthless, cold-blooded killer. This kind of thing, I suppose I can only discuss with Yara. Yara smiled gently and said, "From what I've observed, Lord Heir Aiden Zhao has a rather high opinion of himself. The colder you are toward him, the more it fuels his desire to conquer." After saying this, she tucked a stray strand of hair behind her ear. Men, they're just so shallow. I massaged my temples and asked, "Is there any way to make him back off on his own?" Yara thought for a moment and replied, "The more prideful a man is, the more he fears rejection. Just keep your distance and act indifferent, and he'll naturally get the message." I hope so. In the following days, I grew even colder toward Aiden Zhao, escaping to the stables daily to avoid him. Yet Aiden Zhao didn't retreat. Instead, he became even more persistent, constantly trying to please me, sending gifts, and sometimes even coming to the stables to escort me home. The servants of the estate saw this and began spreading rumors that I was virtuous and kind, diligently caring for the child sister left behind, and had finally won over the Lord Heir's heart. Even my own mother caught wind of it and came to tell me, "Actually, your brother-in-law isn't a bad man. He's both cultured and martial, with a promising future. If you can come to terms with it and live well with him, your mother would be at ease." What nonsense. This is all his wishful thinking. Harassed relentlessly by Aiden Zhao. I was at the riding grounds one day, pondering how to give him a beating, when suddenly someone galloped toward me from nearby. His figure was all too familiar, and the closer he got, the more my heart raced with alarm. It turned out to be an old acquaintance. Upon seeing me, he broke into a smile and said, "Fives, long time no see." "Zeke," I called out softly. It had been nearly 2 years since we parted at J Pass. Zeke was as elegantly handsome as ever. He rode alongside me skillfully, gazing at me deeply while complaining, "You've been back in the capital so long, yet you never thought to come see me?" Naturally, I knew where he lived, but what was the use of saying that? I simply replied, "In my current position, it's not convenient for me to contact you." Zeke suddenly stopped and sighed, asking, Are you doing well now?" I gazed into the distance and said, "Very well. Both children are growing up splendidly. No one in the Earl's household dares provoke me. Once Aiden Zhao's foolish infatuation is resolved, everything will be quite satisfactory." Zeke lowered his head and said softly, "If you feel content, then I can rest easy." I sighed silently. That day, we rode together at the equestrian grounds for a long time, just like in the old days. Only, when my horse protested, did I lead it back for water and fodder. As we parted, Zeke whispered, "Fives, if I wish to see you in the future, may I still come here?" I replied, frankly, "The equestrian grounds are open for business. Naturally, you may come. Just please come incognito, as you did today." Zeke showed a heartfelt smile. "Fives, I truly enjoyed myself today." On the way back, my emotions surged uncontrollably, remembering those carefree, joyful days Zeke and I shared at J Pass. I suddenly felt like crying, because I knew those times are gone forever. There will never be days like that again. After returning home, Aiden Zhao was waiting for me in the room with a gloomy expression, as if someone owed him a fortune. "What is it?" I said listlessly. Aiden Zhao slowly raised his head, staring into my eyes. "Who were you with today?" His tone sounded accusatory, which I found deeply irritating. I looked at him calmly for a moment and said, "Who I'm with is none of your business." Veins bulged on Aiden Zhao's forehead as he angrily retorted, "I went out of my way to pick you up today, only to see you with some young man, acting without a shred of dignity. Willow you're my wife, yet you've never smiled at me like that." So he had seen me with Zeke. He probably didn't get a clear look at Zeke's face, or his reaction would have been far worse. I scoffed at Aiden Zhao's anger and said flatly, "I married you. I didn't sell myself to you. What gives you the right to order me around?" If this were the old days, I would have knocked a few of his teeth out. Aiden Zhao suddenly stood up, strode right up to me, and tightly grabbed my wrist. "You refuse to share a bed with me. You keep me at arm's length. Is it because there's someone else in your heart?" He was standing too close, making me uncomfortable. I said sternly, "Let go." Aiden Zhao stared fixedly at me. "I won't, not unless you give me a clear explanation." A surge of inexplicable anger rose in me. I shook him off forcefully and snapped, "Keep your hands to yourself." Aiden Zhao's hand was flung away, his eyes growing even more resentful. He pressed closer and said, "Would you? Since you've married me, you must be a true wife to me, bear my children, stay by my side forever." Was he trying to force himself on me? The commotion drew Ruby and Jade rushing in from outside, eyeing Aiden Zhao warily, ready to intervene at any moment. Aiden Zhao shouted, "Get out." I waved a hand at Ruby and Jade. They exchanged a glance, knowing I wasn't in real danger, and slowly retreated. Aiden Zhao mistook my silence for compliance, shoving me against the wall as he murmured passionately, "You're still young and don't understand marital love yet. I'll treat you well from now on." Before he could finish, I finally snapped and suddenly swung my palm at him. The distance between us was too close for Aiden Zhao to react in time. He instinctively blocked, deflecting some of the force, but my strike still landed squarely on his chest. "You." The next second, he spat out a mouthful of blood, clutching his chest with his right hand. Aiden Zhao stared at me in shock and said, "You know martial arts?" I gazed at him calmly, pursing my lips as I replied, "I grew up at J Pass. What's so strange about knowing how to fight?" No sooner had I spoken than Aiden Zhao coughed again, vomiting a large gush of blood with a retching sound. I'd been too furious earlier and hadn't held back my strength. Clearing my throat somewhat guiltily, I added, "It's just internal shock from the impact. Nothing serious." Aiden Zhao let out a bitter laugh. "Willow, I truly feel like I know you less and less. I've practiced martial arts since I was 10, so of course I knew you were skilled. But what else are you hiding from me? Remember, I am your husband. Practiced martial arts since 10? I scoffed. What you call practice was nothing but flashy moves. The only purpose of martial arts is to kill. It's honed on the battlefield, nowhere else." Aiden Zhao was too stunned to speak, murmuring softly, "I always felt you looked down on me. And it turns out it's true. Since we've come this far, I see no point in hiding anything anymore. My grandfather used to say that you capital officials are all pleasure-seeking, incompetent parasites. And don't take offense, that includes my own father. My grandfather had a habit of indiscriminately attacking all civil officials. Raised under his influence, I naturally took his words as gospel. So, from the very start, when everyone praised Aiden Zhao as a talented scholar and warrior, handsome and an ideal match, to me, it was all nonsense. I've always despised civil officials, and his martial skills are no match for mine. Not even comparable to red, green, yellow, or purple. I looked directly at Aiden Zhao and stated bluntly, "I am not suited for the Jinyang estate, nor can I be a good wife. The only reason I agreed to marry was for the 2 children. My mother and I have a 10-year agreement. After that, I will return to Jeju Pass." Since indirect methods failed, I had to be straightforward. Aiden Zhao was even more shocked, rendered speechless for a long time. What do you take my Jinyang estate for? A place you can come and go as you please?" Aiden Zhao said with blood on his lips, his voice pained. I sneered. "If you hadn't failed to properly care for Leo and Alara, why would I sacrifice my precious 10 years? Do you think I enjoy being stuck in this wretched courtyard all day? Now that everything is out in the open, I ask you to cooperate and raise the children well. When I leave someday, I will remember your kindness." Aiden Zhao slowly raised his head, a chilling coldness in his eyes. "What if I refuse? You are my wife. Without my consent, you cannot leave." I shot him a glance and said, "My life's out of my oven. I'll leave whenever I wish. If you're willing to divorce, all the better. If not, do you really think you can stop me? It's not that I underestimate him, but even if he mobilized the entire Earl's household, they wouldn't last 2 strikes each against Ruby, Jade, Amber, and Violet." Aiden Zhao clenched his fist tightly, glaring at me in furious silence. His eyes were brimming with resentment, not wanting to push him too far. I softened my voice. "In 10 years, the children won't need their mother anymore, and you can remarry or take concubines to enjoy a life of luxury. Brother-in-law, I don't like the capital. If you still care for me at all, don't stand in my way." After Aiden Zhao left, I sent someone to deliver some medicinal ointments to him. I feared his pride might prevent him from seeking treatment, and if his injuries worsened, it would become my problem. But the incident had wounded him deeply. For several days afterward, he secluded himself indoors, worrying both children greatly. Ruby remarked, "People in the capital truly are fragile creatures." Jade said, "Back at Jeju Pass, if your guts spilled out, you just stuff them back in and keep fighting." Zinnia, who rarely spoke, chimed in, "Useless." Only Yara was caught between laughter and tears. "The young master's wounds are of the heart, not the body. When will you all ever grow up?" I couldn't help but smile wryly. Aside from myself, even my own people weren't cut out for the capital. I decided not to disturb Aiden Zhao, letting him come to terms with things in his own time. In the days that followed, I continued to visit the racetrack daily for amusement. Zeke would drop by every few days for a while, never indulging in frivolities, just chatting with me as we rode. But fearing I might upset Aiden Zhao again, I told Zeke, "You should visit less often lately." Zeke forced a smile and asked, "But, did your in-laws say something?" I sighed. "My husband saw us together last time. You know how troublesome domestic strife can be." Zeke lowered his head, pausing a moment before replying. All right. As I walked ahead, I heard him murmur softly, "We can't go back to how things were, can we?" I closed my eyes and said, "Yes, we can't go back." As I spoke, I saw Aiden Zhao standing pale, faced in the corner, having waited for who knows how long. Upon seeing Zeke's face, he finally lost all composure. "Your humble servant pays respects to the crown prince." In the carriage on the way back, Aiden Zhao could no longer contain himself. "I intended to have a proper talk with you, but who would have thought that person was actually the crown prince? Willow, you owe me an explanation." I saw his eyes redden, his expression dark and stubborn, and knew he wouldn't rest until he got to the bottom of this. If I kept silent, he might even jump to the wrong conclusions. I sighed and said, "There's nothing that can't be spoken of. Truly, it's nothing much. It all started 15 years ago, when Mother gave birth to me. Father was serving as an official near Jeju Pass. Before I turned 2, Father received a transfer order to take up another official post elsewhere. Seeing how young I was, Mother couldn't bear to subject me to the long journey, so she left me at Grandfather's house, and that stay lasted 15 years. Since childhood, Grandfather raised me as a boy. By age 12, I followed him to the battlefield to fight enemies. At that time, Grandfather had 4 grandsons, so the family ranked me 5th and publicly declared me his 5th grandson. My older brothers always called me Fives. Thinking of those years, I slowly sank into memories. That year I was 13, and Zeke was sent by the Emperor to Jeju Pass for training. Back then, aside from Grandfather and my uncle, no one knew his true identity. To keep Zeke safe, my uncle dared not send him to the front lines, instead entrusting him to my 4th brother to familiarize him around and find tasks. But 4th brother found it troublesome and didn't want to babysit a young lad all day, so he passed him to me. Unexpectedly, Zeke and I hit it off immediately and talked joyfully for hours. We went hunting and horseback riding everywhere. Sometimes, I even took him on minor missions. Those were truly wonderful days. Zeke and I laughed and played all day, happy as a pair of monkeys. But Jeju Pass wasn't always peaceful. Enemies would attack from time to time. Once I took on a mission to raid the enemy camp at night, to lure them out, to give Zeke some experience. I specifically called him to join me. Little did I know, I got careless that time. The enemy seemed to know the crown prince was there, and they came in numbers many times greater than usual. We never got the backup we expected and were routed along the way, nearly losing our lives. Luckily, the men with me were battle-hardened veterans, and we finally found a hidden spot to take cover. Back then, I even took a sword strike for Zeke. I still have that scar on my shoulder to this day. Thinking back now, thank goodness I was loyal enough. If Zeke had died in that nameless battle, the whole of Jeju Pass couldn't have borne the consequences. At the time, Zeke held me and cried, swearing he'd never let me down and that we'd share wealth and honor from then on. I said, "What's the big deal? We soldiers, even if our guts spill out, we just stuff them back in and keep on fighting." Zeke, his face streaked with tears and snot, sobbed, "Fives, your mouth is far sharper than your blade." Finally, at the critical moment, 3rd brother and 4th brother arrived with troops to rescue us, saving our 2 little lives. After this narrow escape, Grandfather flew into a rage, and that's how I learned Zeke's true identity. Looking back on it now, it still sends a chill down my spine. Zeke also found out I wasn't General Valiant's grandson, but his granddaughter. Aiden Zhao listened quietly all along, as still as a statue. It wasn't until I reached this part that he said hoarsely, "That jade Rui scepter." I nodded gently. Yes, it was a gift from the crown prince. Zeke and I have always been above board, without a hint of impropriety. But time flies when you're happy. Later, the emperor summoned him back, and before leaving, Zeke asked if I would marry him and become the crown princess. I thought it over for a night and refused him. I said to Aiden Zhao, "It's not that I feel unworthy or that I don't deserve him. In fact, Grandfather said I rival any man in capability and am the finest girl in all the world. I simply feel I could never be the crown princess, let alone an empress who mothers the nation. So I gave the gifts Zeke gave me to my sister, symbolizing my wish to leave the past behind. Aiden Zhao's lips curled into a self-mocking smile as he said bitterly, "Then why did you come back? If even the position of the crown princess couldn't keep you, what merit could Aiden Zhao, possibly have?" I shrugged lightly. My sister was gravely ill, and I returned home for her funeral. That's when I realized I was the only one left by my parents' side, so I stayed. After that, everything unfolded as fate would have it. Aiden Zhao listened silently, seemingly deeply shaken. I said with earnest gravity, "So, no matter what, I will definitely return to Jeju Pass, because that is my home. My staying now is only out of duty to my parents and loyalty to my sister, not for you. It never was." Aiden Zhao let out a long sigh and suddenly punched the carriage. With a loud thud, blood immediately streamed from his hand. "No matter what your past holds, you are now a Zhao family woman. You owe your parents, but I owe you nothing. What am I supposed to do?" Aiden Zhao roared hoarsely. I weakly closed my eyes. Aiden Zhao shook my shoulders, his eyes burning with intensity. "Willow, can't you just set your heart on me? I'll take you back to Jeju Pass to visit your family. I'll pay respects to your grandfather. No matter what, you're still a woman. You have to marry someday." I pushed him away and declared firmly, "Who says I won't marry in the future? There are countless fine young men at Jeju Pass. I'm hardly worried about finding a husband." All right, time flew by until Alara turned 8 and Leo turned 5. From this year onward, Leo also began his studies. He attended the Zhao family school, and everyone knew that Willow was fiercely protective of her own. So even Colin, who had dominated the school for 2 years, dared not cause trouble for Leo. Leo would strut off to school every day with his nose in the air, then come trotting back to follow at my heels, chattering about every trivial thing that happened at school. As for Alara, she was growing more and more into a young lady. She looked increasingly like my sister, and even her temperament mirrored hers. Generous, tolerant, gentle, and sensible. But I didn't want her to be so sensible. Being sensible only benefits the husband's family, just like how Aiden Zhao treated my sister, taking everything for granted, acting like he was some grand lord to be waited on hand and foot. True happiness comes from following your own heart. So besides teaching Alara, I would occasionally create little troubles for her to see how she handled them. No matter what she did, I would always review it with her afterward, showing her how to maximize her advantage. Alara practically regarded me as her own mother. Once she joked with a smile, "Mother, did you hone these skills dealing with father?" I wasn't offended and replied, "Someone like your father isn't even worth my effort." After 2 years, the 2 children had grown even more dependent on me and trusted me completely, especially Leo, who gradually shed his timidity and even started to get mischievous at times. I've always believed that boys can be a bit mischievous. As long as they can handle my discipline, a little mischief is an option. But lately, this kid has learned some bad tricks. Whenever I scold him, he runs around yelling. The teacher said, "Endure small punishments, but flee big ones." I'm not being unfilial. I'm following the sage's words. What nonsense from that so-called sage. Aiden Zhao has matured a lot over these 2 years, and his feelings for me have grown more reserved. He no longer begs me to stay, but instead proves his worth with sincerity, almost like slowly boiling a frog in warm water. He treats me extremely well, so well that he's even earned a reputation in the capital as a doting husband. Unfortunately, he still doesn't understand me. I did have feelings for Zeke once, and he even promised me the position of future queen, but I still turned him down. I won't stay for just any man. Men only slow down my draw. And so, as the year drew to a close, I was about to spend my 3rd New Year at Jinyang Estate. The capital was bustling as always, yet amidst the liveliness, I detected a whiff of restless unease among the people. My mother came to me specially and said, "Your father mentioned that the emperor has been unwell lately, and several princes are growing restless. The other day, the 3rd prince, born of consort Li, was reprimanded and told to return to his fiefdom after the new year." I understood. This feeling was the calm before the storm of conspiracy. At breakfast, I said to Aiden Zhao, the third prince will never obediently return to his fief. If I were him, I'd stir up trouble during the New Year festivities. Years ago, grandfather had already analyzed each of the princes with me. Zeke is the crown prince, deeply favored by his majesty. However, having lost his mother early, the other princes always harbor some resentment. Hearing this, Aiden Zhao looked grave and said, "Don't worry, I'm in the Ministry of Justice and have little involvement with them. Our household will also increase patrols these next few days. Even if chaos breaks out, we'll be safe." I sighed inwardly. The Earl's estate would be fine, a noble household with high walls. But what about the common people? What will become of them? On New Year's Eve, the entire family gathered together to observe the tradition of staying up late. Just then, chaos suddenly erupted outside. The entire street was filled with passing troops and horses, along with some roving bandits taking advantage of the turmoil to loot and plunder. Having prepared in advance, Aiden Zhao and his brothers stood guard vigilantly within the estate, with ample personnel stationed at every key point. The Dowager Countess, already in poor health, trembled with fear upon hearing this, muttering Amit Babuda while lamenting, "What a sin, truly a sin." I reassured her. The third prince's forces will only attack the imperial palace for now. They won't target noble families yet. Most of those outside are just scattered opportunists taking advantage of the chaos. Nothing to fear. The Dowager Countess nodded. That's good. That's good. Lady Li, who usually dared not contradict me, seemed too frightened now and muttered under her breath, "You say that like it's a fact." I set down my teacup and suddenly stood up. Lady Li was startled. "What are you doing?" I was just speaking casually. I sneered. Every common man has a duty to his country's rise and fall. I'm going out to see for myself. With that, I headed outside with Ruby. Whether someone held a grudge against the Earl's household or not, at least 200 to 300 people had gathered outside the main gate, brandishing torches and weapons while shouting curses. Their lady, Lady Li, is heartlessly wealthy. She lends out usurious loans and has squeezed countless people dry of their hard-earned money. Brothers, charge in. All that gold and silver belongs to us now. Beyond that, there were also some reckless types hurling vulgar insults. This mob was clearly composed mostly of bandits and ruffians. Hearing these words, everyone's expressions turned grim. Lady Li's 2 years of loan sharking had evidently made her many enemies. Aiden Zhao's second brother panicked. "What should we do? We don't have enough guards in the mansion. If these 300 people break in, we're all finished." The third brother said, "We should flee. Better than waiting here to die." Aiden Zhao remained relatively calm and said, "No, the back gate is also surrounded. Staying inside at least gives us some protection. If we go out, we'll be even more vulnerable." They argued back and forth a few times but could devise no real solution. In great chaos, smaller troubles inevitably follow. At this moment, the Imperial Guard on night patrol must be preoccupied with their own troubles, leaving noble households to rely solely on their own armed forces. I clenched my fists slightly, resolutely turned back into the courtyard, and gathered all my subordinates. Over these years, I had brought 30 men with me from Jeju Pass to the capital. They were all elites from the surprise attack squad, each capable of holding their own and having slain countless enemies. I had everyone don light armor and draw their weapons, declaring, "Let's go. It's time for us to act." As our group reached the main gate, Aiden Zhao, seeing me in full military attire, exclaimed in alarm, "What are you planning to do?" I overrode him and issued orders. "Now divide all available hands into 2 groups. One to guard the main hall where the Dowager Countess, the old Earl, and the children are, and the other to secure all other rear and side gates of the estate." Aiden Zhao anxiously said, "What are you thinking?" "Wu Jiao, this is no time for jokes," I coldly retorted. "It is you who are joking. The enemy is right outside the gate. Do you have a plan? If they break through, are we to be lambs to the slaughter? Truly, scholars are good for nothing in times of crisis." I shouted loudly, "Everyone step aside. We'll open the gates and let them in, then catch them like turtles in a jar. No, we mustn't. Aiden Zhao's younger brothers wore expressions of sheer terror. We should wait for the Imperial Guard to rescue us. That's better than marching to our deaths now. I pushed these men aside, flicked my ear, and said, enough, don't make me repeat myself. Everyone returned to the main hall, not wanting to waste more time with them. I simply had Ruby escort them back to the main hall. From inside the hall, Lady Li wept. Your reckless actions must not bring disaster upon us. The Dowager Countess also lamented, such misfortune has befallen our house. Such misfortune. Only the voices of Alara and Leo rang out. Mother will surely triumph. I smiled faintly, my heart surging and blood boiling. It had been so long since I last felt this way. Gripping two sabers, I roared, open the gates. The gates slowly swung open. Torchlight flickered outside as those men rushed in eagerly, their faces twisted with greed. They've opened the gates. They're scared. Brothers, there's as much gold and jewels as you can carry. I took a deep breath and said grimly, not a single one who enters today shall leave alive. My subordinates roared in unison. Kill! The deafening cry cut through the night like a thunderclap. 200 to 300 ragtag soldiers were nothing but vegetables to chop for us warriors tempered on real battlefields. Before I could even move, Zinnia shot forward like an arrow. With a flash of her blade, 5 or 6 men fell instantly. Blood and flesh flew through the air, turning the scene into a living hell in moments. The leader at the front charged in, thinking we'd given up resistance, a greedy grin still plastered on his face, only to be decapitated in an instant. Panic seized them. Poor fools. They had no idea what terrifying opponents they were facing. Ruby and Jade struck almost simultaneously, one shouting, this time, I'll be the one with the highest kill count. The other yelling, my blade hasn't tasted blood in far too long. The main hall of the Earl's Manor fell into dead silence. Those who had been shouting moments ago were now utterly dumbstruck. I snapped out of my daze and rushed forward immediately. If we don't kill them now, they'll all be taken by the others. These 300 men were like straw, stuffed practice dummies. Our 30-strong group swarmed them, not in moments, but in less time than it takes for an incense stick to burn. We had slaughtered every last one. The last few, seeing us like gods of death, nearly wet themselves in terror, weeping and howling as they turned to flee. I hastily shouted to the servants at the door, close the gates, don't let them escape. Since they chose to come in, they shouldn't think about leaving. Trembling from head to toe, they knelt on the ground begging for mercy, saying, we were truly wrong. We were deceived. We'll never dare again. Zinnia said, enough nonsense. Just finish them off. Jade said, no, we should keep one alive for interrogation, to find out who sent them. A cold glint flashed in Zinnia's eyes as she swung her saber, swiftly slitting the throats of several, leaving only one alive. One living captive is enough. Jade. I had the corpses brought over and neatly stacked at the entrance of the Earl's mansion as a warning. The Dowager Countess and the others didn't dare come out to see the pile of bodies. Back when we were hacking the corpses at the front gate to pieces, with limbs flying everywhere, Lady Li had already vomited up all her bile. Aiden Zhao gazed at me quietly and said, is this the real you? I had someone bring a horse, leaped onto it, and declared, I'm going out to see what's happening. Aiden Zhao gripped my reins tightly and said, don't go out. Everything's manageable within the mansion, but it's too dangerous outside. You mustn't go. I looked into the distance and said firmly, our mansion is safe now, but there are still many people suffering out there. In the direction of the distant Imperial Palace, flames were raging as well. I trust Zeke. He wouldn't wage a war unprepared. His Majesty is wise and discerning. I won't add to the chaos. I'm going out to deal with those with ill intentions who are taking advantage of the situation to loot, to prevent innocent commoners from being caught in the crossfire of this imperial power struggle. Let's go. We fight our way out. Tonight, the capital city is destined for sleeplessness. After stepping out, I first led my men to the Yu residence. My father is a cunning old fox. His enemies are never few, only ever more. Sure enough, they were in the thick of battle, with over half the household guards already dead or wounded. Seeing my arrival, my father's spirits lifted, and he immediately began to boast and taunt. I charged ahead, cleaving off half the leader of the bandits' head with my saber. As the saying goes, to stop an army, first capture its general. Leaderless, the group fell into disarray, and my men swarmed in, wiping them out completely in moments. Next, I went door to door, cutting down anyone I saw taking advantage of the chaos. By night's end, my saber had drunk the blood of countless souls. Along the way, I also linked up with the deputy commander of the Imperial Guard, who was deeply moved by my righteous intervention. We split into two forces, rescuing many civilians from peril. As the sun rose, everything finally came to a close. The third prince was placed under house arrest. His mother was executed with poison, and all the rebel generals were captured without resistance. When I returned to the Earl's mansion covered in blood, everyone was too afraid to even breathe loudly. Only Aiden Zhao and the two children ran over, anxiously asking if I was injured. They only relaxed when they saw the blood wasn't mine. Even Lady Li and the other female relatives dared not speak loudly around me, and the Dowager Countess would startle at just a glance from me. Honestly, I saved their lives. How could they be so rude? After this incident, the Emperor rewarded the meritorious deeds, and the deputy commander of the Imperial Guard reported my heroic actions to the court. My father intervened and credited this achievement to Aiden Zhao instead. Aiden Zhao asked in astonishment, "Why did you do this?" I replied, "Didn't you say you owed me nothing?" Back when I said I wanted to leave, Aiden Zhao adamantly refused. Now, I just want to make sure he owes me. Aiden Zhao was stunned, and after a long silence, whispered softly, "I will write the divorce papers." Extra story. 8 years later, I escorted Alara to her wedding sedan. She said gratefully, "Mother, I will live well and never betray your teachings. You may now pursue what you love. This child is truly sensible." I nodded. While packing my bags, Leo bounced over, insisting I take him with me no matter what. "Absolutely not. Your father is the lord heir of the estate, and you are his eldest son. How could you leave with me? There is a title to inherit at home." Leo refused to accept it, throwing tantrums all day. "Mother, take me with you. I beg you. I'll do anything. I want to see Jeyu Pass, the place you always dream of." Aiden Zhao, now with silver strands in his hair, told Leo, "You may go, if you pass the imperial exams and become a scholar." Leo cheered excitedly. "I will definitely pass." After he left, I said helplessly, "With him, it'd be a miracle if he passes." Aiden Zhao shook his head with a smile, a delaying tactic. I retorted, "But what if he actually succeeds? What will you do then?" Aiden Zhao said, "Then just take him with you. A few years of experience might make him more presentable. I'm about to go back home, and now I have to bring along a son who's 7 feet tall. Why should I? I strongly suspect Aiden Zhao has ulterior motives. These years haven't been easy for you. After I leave, you should take a second wife. When I'm in a good mood, I become exceptionally reasonable." Aiden Zhao wore a faint smile and said, "That's none of your concern. Just remember, you can come back anytime you wish." I didn't know what to say. All along, I've disliked him intensely, but habit is a frightening thing. Facing him now feels like facing family. Brother-in-law, don't wait for me. I won't be coming back. After saying this, I went to bid farewell to my parents. Who knows when we'll meet again? Jeyu Pass. Here I come.